So we have contamination on this car after contact wash, everything going on. We realized we have to clay it. I'm a big advocate of using whatever soap. If your soap isn't lubricated enough to clay, it's not a good soap. We know Cleanse is. So I can do a couple things. I can grab a towel, which we'll do along the way, or I could just shoot it all with soap. We're inside here. So I'm gonna shoot it with soap and we're gonna use that as the lubrication.
Cool.
Okay. Now, this is a perfectly safe clay lube. If it starts to get to a point where you don't have a lot of soap on the surface, just grab something out of your wheel bucket, or out of your wash bucket. You can hear your clay there.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was about to say. Big reason the way we knew, like, you could literally just feel it and hear it. It's like, wow, it's got something.
Yeah, well, remember when we assessed this car, we knew that it's at least been to paint somewhere because of some damage that took place. And again, no pressure.
There's the thing about clay, sometimes people get confused. And I think as clay has become more mainstream, it's beginning to be more utilized. And you can see as you go through and look at it, we're pulling up quite a bit off of this paint. Here's what we're not doing with clay.
Yeah. No, you just want to go till you don't hear the sound anymore. Make sure you get all the way to the edge. Yeah, this has got something heavy on it.
That drives me crazy. I'm like, no, man, just take long strokes. We're not digging in. We're just taking nice, long, easy to go, just going across the paint. But there's sometimes people I know they get cautious around clay because they think it's going to take them 4 hours to clay a car. Now, if it's heavily, heavily contaminated, you bet. But ideally, it should really only take us about 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yep. And it is real bad up here.
Whew, almost dropped the clay. That's definitely a no-no. Now, the other no-no, too, is to come down and especially like I heard over here, a lot of real nastiness. I don't really want to come back up to the top and start rubbing again, do I?
No. And we got these headlights I think this is paint overspray that we're hearing. But it could be fallout. It could be, I mean, you just don't know. I mean, a lot of times when there's paint overspray on like a light color, you'll see like dark specks. Or on like a black one, you'll see a lot of white specks. And so just continue to knead your clay. You'll be fine. I don't know, I think it is coming across on my mic here. It's just, there's a lot of contamination. And again, more indication that we definitely have had some body work on this car, I think.
I know that's going to be into some people's minds. Let's just go ahead and say it. I know you said it earlier, hey, we found this, but some people are just going to go, well, why didn't you clay it the first? Why didn't you clay it a long time ago? Right?
Yeah, you want to clay a really clean vehicle, right? Because you want to make sure that you're picking up the contamination. I think one of the things that it's a good thing to bring up, clay's overused. We say this on the Pints and Polishing Podcast, I don't know, 1,000 times. Don't clay unless it needs to be clayed. In this case, I think you guys can hear on the microphones, this needs to be clayed.
So what are we hearing?
You're just hearing some type of contamination. Again, I think we're when they paint a car, realistically, they should be masking the whole car so they don't get paint overspray. But I don't think they did that here. And it's just, paint that gets in the air settles on the car's clear coat and it's contaminated. The other thing is, industrial fallout and all these different types of things, that we have going on.
So I've known people that have questioned what we're doing with clay, which is why I bring it up. Like, that's what we're removing. There was people that I know that I've talked to that they thought that clay was actually removing microns of the clear coat.
I mean, I guess if you went crazy, it could. I mean, it's got an abrasive makeup, but I mean, you'd have to be doing some serious damage.
And you had to be using some real heavy
Yeah. I don't
clay.
even know if we see that much anymore. This is a pretty sturdy clay that we're using because we do have some extra contamination here. And actually in this instance, it's probably needed, you know, because we have just some things going on here. Out of our control, nothing to be worked up about. You know, people get real worked up about clay, you know. I mean, I know people that go to car shows and they think they have to clay their vehicle. Mainly for me, unless something out of my control, there are some cars I've never had to clay and, you know, have been taking care of them for 10 years. There's some that I clay once, never clay again because they never get contaminated again. But did you do the rear?
I have not.
Okay. But clay should be one and done unless you have something out of your control happen. Something like somebody paints a house near your car. That's the most popular, you know, screw up that we see. You know, or something.
Listen, we had to run over to one of those like minor emergency places recently because, you know, as you could probably tell, here in the springtime of Oklahoma, we got a lot of stuff blooming. What happens? A lot of allergies and congestion, a lot of, So we had to run into one of those places to get a shot, you know, get an allergy shot, get some medication because we couldn't get in to see our regular doctor. What were they doing there? Painting the building in the middle of the day.
Oh, there you go. Done.
Like, what are y'all doing?
Done.
I made sure we parked on the other parking lot out of the end. It's like, wait, why are we walking up there? Because we ain't getting close to those guys. You know, they got to do it, but at the same time, we as car owners got to make sure that we stay away from things like that we see, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
No try and give us more work than we need. All right, now are you doing glass and windshield and everything?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And there is theory of if we do have a new clay bar or a clay towel or a clay mitt, you know, any of that, there's a theory that, you know, and it's a good theory to start on the windshield.
Sure. Break it in, you know, especially the synthetic stuff, you know, which can be, no matter what anybody tells you, a little bit more harsh than you think. Kind of knock the edges off a little bit, get it ready to go. And yeah, I'm doing everything. I mean, once I've decided to clay, you know, I've decided to clay. So, man, listen to that. And it's really bad back here where we think they did have the repaint. So it's no surprise, really.
You think maybe it could just be junk in their paint when they painted it?
Could be.
Yeah?
Yeah, it could be anything, right? And this is, we analyzed it needed to be clayed, so we're claying it.
Here's a hang up that happens with clay. That scrubbing away and now suddenly I see like, oh, what is that? Right? We call it clay marring, but not everybody understands what clay marring could be and why you want to choose certain types of clay or the mitts or any of that. And, you know, the way to test to know if you're going to create the mar is to clean it after you test, you know, do a test spot the same as we do a test spot if we're buffing the car, right? Like if you're a little apprehensive, then yeah, grab a little place that's inconspicuous, clay that area and then see if you're going to be marring the paint.
Yeah, one of the things here too is people are probably wondering why we have an iron decondit, and there's a real simple reason why. I don't think our iron decon could have got through this, right? It was that much, you know, heavy contamination. So it's really important to understand that you got to assess what's going on. I would much rather iron decon before we did this, if I had my choice. This was pretty heavy contamination, right? So your iron decon is going to try to fight through that stuff that it doesn't eat away.
Well, we actually saw no signs of like iron contamination.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more overspray, like, or something in that.
Yeah, so
something's happened.
So what we'll do is we'll rinse it, and just because we want to do the best job we can, we'll iron decon after this.
Yeah.
And we'll have no problem, you know. Yeah.
Feels good now.
Well, And let's talk about why you do this. Because these particles start to eat away at your clear coat. You got the sun hitting it. It's got all of this stuff. It starts to bake into your clear coat. It starts to eat away at your clear coat. Your clear coat's damaged by the sun, no doubt, but also things in the paint, things on the paint being hit by the sun start to degrade your clear coat. So again, your hope is that you care for your car well enough and you don't have a bad break like somebody painting a building, that you do this once and you're done. That's what you're hoping, right? And again, the vast majority of cars in my life have gone that route, right? Like that's what has happened in my life. And there's plenty of cars that I've never had to clay because they've never gotten heavily contaminated. I clayed them once and never clayed them again, right? If they are contaminated. So the goal is to use this once, right? So
we have to, maybe if somebody's in a tough spot, right? Maybe once a year. There's some people that have that theory, hey, once a year, come through and clay my vehicle.
Yeah, if you have, if you live in a heavy industrial area, some of that stuff's out of your control. But honestly, I think a good ceramic coating kind of alleviates that. But again, you got to get it off there. So one of the things of contamination that I believe outside of like house paint or road paint or whatever is if I let my car sit long enough, it's going to get contaminated. If I continue to keep it maintained, it's very unlikely it's going to, because I've even had houses get paint near a customer's car. They call us that same day. Maybe we're able to get to the car the next day and the paint doesn't set up and it's rinsed off. I mean, maintenance and getting this stuff off your car is exactly what you're aiming for.
And if you get a vehicle that you just brought home, a good practice would be to go ahead and clay it at the very first.
Yep.
Because no matter what type of protection we choose, you were right, absolutely. That stuff sitting in the clear coat will begin to degrade and eat away.
Degrade the clear coat and not allow your protection to bond.
And that's where I was going, right? That's the next phase of it is we got to get this off the clear coat so that the protection that we choose to put down, whether that's Uno, whether that's Stack as something comes out later, right? Some of these different products that we have available, whichever we choose, we need to get it off so that protection goes, and whether you want to call stick, bond, adhere, whatever, I want that protection adhering to the clear coat and not the contaminants.
Yep. And so what we'll do is we'll rinse this, then we'll Fuego, allow it to set up, and then we'll make a decision on what we're going to do with this car.
Cool, let's do it.
All right. Now we're going to go with our iron decon. Honestly, we would have done this earlier, but we had such heavy contamination on this car that it wasn't possible. And that's okay. You just switch some things around and you still do the steps, but now this has the best chance to break down anything that's on there. One of the places that gets really contaminated, and we're gonna wanna put a glass coating on this. So put this stuff everywhere. One thing about ours is it's pH neutral. It's safe on all surfaces. If you had a sprayer, I know we sell the Marilex. This would be a good product to put in the Marilex and make this so you didn't have to pull the trigger a bunch, but no big deal at all. And you just want a nice even coat. You don't want to overly waste product, obviously. You just kind of want to layer it on there, and we're going to let it sit, and it's going to do what it's supposed to do.
16 ounce available if people do want a 16 or gallon. Gallon is what we would mix into that 32 ounce bottle.
Yeah, don't dilute it. Use it straight. This is a product that you want full strength. Good thing is we don't have that nasty rotten egg smell, which
absolutely
we've all gone home and been like, man, or at your own home and go, wow, I just stunk up my garage. My car smells. So just a nice even coat.
Some people might be telling us to be quiet so they can listen to the ASMR and just hearing the shh, shh, shh.
And look, I had like half a bottle. I mean, you don't use that much. That's the other thing is when we talk about product and using it properly, you don't use as much as you think. Now, you and I don't think we're going to see a lot of heavy iron contamination on this car, but better safe than sorry. Because one thing that will eat away the finish pretty quick are those really hot, iron particles being embedded. We got a little bit, especially on the back, under, but nothing. This isn't heavily contaminated with iron. It just hasn't had that in its life. But we had other contamination, right? So you just never know. I mean, you and I have done cars.
Specks, yeah, not much.
You and I have had cars that are just, completely purple, and then had no reason to clay. And we've had, something like this, all the reason in the world to clay, and just a little bit of contamination from iron, here and there. But, to me, I'm a better safe than sorry guy, right? So, this is a new to us car. This could be a new car. I would go through the same process. Or a used car new to us. This is the same process I would use.
And the reason we're not going to clay and use an iron decon at the same time is, one, no lubrication in an iron decon that we would really need if we're concerned about abrading the surface and leaving marring. The safer process is using something with lubrication.
Yeah, and if you have heavy iron contamination, you want as much active ingredient to eat away at that, not try to spread your product super thin.
With only a couple spritzes, and away you go.
No, I mean, this is eating away at something, right? So to take something, put it in a spot, put it on a sponge, put it on a towel, put it on your clay, and think you're gonna spread this out, doesn't quite work that way. You want as much active ingredient, because again, if this was just covered in iron, one little spray is not going to eat away at all that iron. You may see some purple get moved around by your clay, but you're not exactly breaking everything down. And again, this is such a relaxing process, and you use so little product to begin with. What is really the need? You know what I mean? So, and I want to be safe. Like you said, Cleanse is way more lubricated than any iron decon on the market, including our own. Right? You could use a clay lube. That's going to be more lubricated than an iron decon product. It's okay that this just does what it does, right? I'm not asking it to do too much.
And the benefit of using soap like we did using Cleanse, or if we didn't need to use a Cleanse, and we're not trying to do that, we could use foam wash. It's also very lubricating.
Yeah.
The benefit of using that instead of a spray, a lube spray, a lot of people go, hey, what product should I use? If I'm detailing, if I'm doing a maintenance program to detail my cars and keep them clean, should I then use a spray, a detail spray, a lube spray? I'm going to go with no, because it's going to introduce, as we know chemistry and building products, I'm introducing something onto the paint, onto the clear coat, onto what I'm working on that isn't there to clean it, it isn't there to lubricate, it isn't there to do it. Actually, that stuff actually creates more barriers and more things that you don't want to enter into the system.
Yeah, and look, we're trying to get to naked paint, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of fillers in chemistry. It's not fillers as it fills your paint, but fillers in chemistry that give certain products certain, characteristics. And a lot of times those things have a light protective quality to them, or a shine product or whatever, and they're telling you it's a clay lube. Look, man, you're just better off leaving this thing as naked as possible. That's why if I clayed, I just use a soap, or do your last step, do this.
All right, so if I want the 5 best practices for maintaining my vehicle, is one of them claying it on a regular basis?
If it's contaminated. This is where, is it a great practice? Yes. If the car needs clayed, you got to clay it. If it doesn't need clayed, I'm not going to introduce that marring just to introduce
So I might hold off. If I'm looking for the 5 best, I might hold off on clay as being one of them.
Yeah.
All right. We definitely need to get this rinsed off. Yeah. We might, if we are wanting one of the 5, maybe using an iron decon on a regular basis would be done instead of using clay.
Yeah.
So if we are wanting to maintain and learn the best practices, using iron decon, using Fuego on a regular basis is beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely.